Hi everyone, and welcome back to Darlene's Creative Studio. Today I am just packing up some of my stuff. We are heading home next weekend back to Canada, and I just made this little password notebook. You can use it for hashtags, passwords. I made one of these during my 30-day challenge, and I just recently made two more, and I sent one to a good friend of mine, and this one is for myself. And this is just file folders, and then I've just added some paper to the inside. These are file folders as well. On the inside I add some of the lined paper that I had here, and then I used some scrapbooking paper, scraps that I had left over, and I just cut using an edge and added that on the inside there. These are hand sewn in. And I thought these would be good, and I put a little tag in the back and added a little tuck spot there. There's a little sticker there. And these are from my die cuts and some of the dots that I cut out when I was cutting out some of my tabs. And then there's a tag here, and I thought I would put my name and address on here and have that sitting inside there. And then there's another sticker on the envelope and another sticker there. So I made that, and then I was trying to use up some of my scraps of my file folder. I had a great big huge Ziploc bag, and all I do is shove all my scraps of cardstock and file folders. There's some in there already. This was just bulging, and I thought I better try and do something with all the scraps. So I spent all day yesterday and the day before cutting out tags with my punches and die cuts, cutting some of these type of labels out of die cuts, and then that's what I was using some of these for. So I made this password notebook. I call it a password notebook. Again, it can be used for anything, for myself. And then I made this was a scrap piece that I had left over. It was just a long piece of file folder, and all I've done is made a little, it was a nice long piece like this. So that was the file folder part. And then I've added two little pockets here, and that just flips up. And then here I've taken some of my book pages and just created some little pockets that I could put some little tabs and stuff in. And they go in these little pockets. And these are just book pages. It was a really old book page, and I had some nice coloring to it, so I wanted to keep them. So I just added these, and then I put some paper on the front because I didn't want to see the book page. But I thought this would be nice for throwing some tags in, and then it was a good way of using up the scraps. I had some of this. Went to a thrift store. I begged my husband to stop at a thrift store the other day. He was not thrilled, but he did it for me. And we went in, and I found 3 great big 12 by 12 scrapbooking pads stuck together with tape for $3.99. So I grabbed those, and then I also got 2 boxes of some ivory 24-pound paper that you use for resumes and stuff. I was actually looking at it in Walmart the other day, and I thought, no, I can't afford it, don't buy it. And I got 2 boxes for $2.99. And then there was some gray, similar type paper in a box for 99 cents, and I grabbed that as well. So these were some of the scrapbooking pages that were in. It was called Fairy Tales from Prima Marketing. And I used some of the paper for that. So that was just using up some of my scraps. But I also had leftovers of this file folder, and I had used it in another project. Can't remember which one. But these are just long strips left over. So I've just gone ahead and taken the file folder, and all of the file folders have those little score marks in them. So when your file gets too fat, you can use the score lines. So I've just taken the first score line and folded it and made myself a little tiny spine. And I cut them off from this fold, so I have this little spine, and I put it in my cutter, and I cut it. I just lifted it up like that. So and from that spine I cut 7 inches, and then I flipped it over, and again from that spine line while it's up like that, I cut another 7 inches. So these are 7 inches by 3 inches, and these were just leftovers. I had 4 pieces of this left over, so I've just cut that to 3 by 7 with that little spine there, and then I rounded the corners. And I'm going to make a couple of these password notebooks from these little pieces. So I have 3 of them. So what I've done is I've taken those, so here's another one with my little spine, and then I've just taken a normal, these are cheap, the thinner file folders, and I like them better because they're almost like paper. Oh, And then the scraps that I cut off, before I get into that, the scraps that I cut off the end, because they were a little bit longer, I put them through my die cut and just cut out some little tabs, some little die cut labels. And I'm going to keep the frames because these would also look nice on some of the other things. So these are just what I cut out of the scraps, the end pieces, like that. And they're colored on one side and plain on the other. So what I'm going to do for the front of these is just take, this is part of the card, the file folder, and I've cut out a die cut and I've distressed the edges, and then I'm going to take one of these little pieces there and I'm just going to set that on the front, and then I'm going to put the password or hashtags or whatever I decide I'm going to use them for. I'm making 4 of them, so I might do one as hashtags and one as passwords, but that's what I'm working with. So that's what I've done with the scraps of these. And then I'm just taking one of these really thin card, I think I got these at Walmart. It was a big huge package of them, and I'm just going to cut them down at the 3 inches, and then I'm going to cut them a little less than 7 inches, and I can get 4, I believe, out of each of these file folders. But what I'm also doing, because when you get by these, you get, this is how they come. You have a left tab, a middle tab, and a right tab in the files. So what I'm doing with these, the middle ones, I'm cutting my 3 inches off, and I'll show you. I'm just going to cut the 2 ends, my 3 inches off. Let me do that real quick. So there's one end, 3 inches, and then on the other end, I'm going to cut 3 inches off. So I'm kind of doing both of these at the same time. So there's 2 pieces that I have for inside my password notebook, and I'm going to cut them shorter. But what I had left over was this, and I don't know if you can see, but this just has, it's like the center one. It only works so much for the center one, maybe for the edges I'll check that. But what I did was I put it on my scoreboard and I scored a 1/2 inch down one side and a 1/2 inch down the other. So I scored it like that. And then what you end up with is, so that's my scores, like that. So there's your 1/2 inch. And then I open it up and cut out a little triangle on the fold so that you get that little edge on your corners. And then what I'm going to do is fold the top one, the shorter one, on the inside. No, sorry, that's wrong. I'm going to fold the back one on the inside and fold the front up like that. And then the front ones I'm going to fold around the back. So I'm going to make myself these little pouches like that. So that the back one, the folds are on the inside so that you can get things in there. If you don't put these little tabs in, you're only going to get one thickness of paper in there. So I folded those in, and then these curves I folded around the back like that. And I'm going to glue those down and maybe distress the edges, and then I'm going to decorate this, and this makes a really nice, see, you can get in there because it has those little edges. So I'm going to make that into a nice little folder, and I'm going to decorate that and distress that. But what I might do too is when I get home, I have a larger Big Shot. I only have my little sidekick here and I can't use it for this, but what I might do is I have a larger one of this die cut. It's about, I don't know, 3 inches, and I might actually put that on the front of this by opening it up and putting it through my die cut like that, and actually cutting out that shape. It's about 3 inch shape, and I'll cut that one out, and then you'll have like a little peekaboo window, and I can put some acetate behind that, and then you'll have like a little peekaboo window to see what's inside there. But I thought these would make really great little pockets. So again, you just score down 1/2 inch, open it up, cut your little triangles on the fold. This back piece you fold the flaps in, and then you close that, and then you fold your outside ones around. And that's all I did for those. So I thought that was kind of neat. I'm going to save all the center ones and make these little pouches. So I've been cutting out some. So anyway, let's get back to the password notebook. Just jumping around here. So I've gone ahead, and I'll use this one. I've already started this one. So what I did was I took 4 of them. So I took 4 pieces and I put one inside the other. So I'm going to have 2 signatures with 2 pieces of cardstock. And then those are going to sit inside my little password notebook. And then all I've done was made little tabs on the ends of them. So if I wanted to use it for hashtags, for making tags, I can put that, or journal tags. Hashtags are great when you're using Instagram to see if more people can see your posts. So I thought this might be good for the different things that I make. You can maybe come up with hashtags for each different area that you work on, whether it's journals, tags, ephemera, that kind of thing. Or again, it's just for passwords, you know, emails, favorite websites, places that you go, that kind of thing. So all I've done was taken the 2 pieces that I've cut, and I just take my bone folder and I just push down that fold really well. And then all I did was put one inside the other, like that. And then I go over, these are 7 inches. So I actually just put it in my cutter and put it 1/8 shorter than the 7 inches. So I'm just going to put it in my cutter, minus 1/8. So you're going to end up with these little scraps, and I'll save those to make some more of these little die cuts. So they'll go back into my scraps that I just finished getting rid of. And then all I did was I took my pencil. Let me move these file folders out of the way. I took my pencil and I went top, bottom, top, bottom. So that's where I want my tabs to be. And then I'm just going to take it over to my tab punch. And this is the multi-tool from We Are Memory Keepers. And I bought this on scrapbook.com, and I noticed that they don't have them any longer, but my friend just found them on Amazon. And it's great because it has the cutting tool. It has, let me just move that, it has this little lip that you can use for scoring, or you flip it over and it's great for cutting. If I can get it back in there, wrong way. So it has your cutting tool. You flip that little blue thing around and you butt your piece up to the edge, and then it's for scoring. This little guy comes out like that. It has all your punches for making tabs and corner punch, hole punch. Can't remember what that is. Oh, that's for tags, for cutting your tags. So you have your scoreboard. Now the only problem is the scoreboard is only 6 inches, so it's a good travel one. So you can take it when you're going somewhere and you want to take all these things with you instead of taking all your different boards. It's just it only does 6 inches, so you have to flip your page around and score it if you're doing something wider than 6 inches. It also has this extension that comes with it for cutting tags. You just insert that into the little holes there, and you put your tag along here, and you score for your edges for your tags. It has envelope scoring, and it has making banners, and here's all your little envelope charts for scoring and then making envelopes. So it's a multi-tool. It's great, but it's a miniature version. You just have to remember that it's the mini version. It's not the full-size scoreboard. And that just slides in the back of there like that. And then it has these little magnets. Oops. And it also has, where did I put it? This extension comes along with it. And these little magnets, and it's for stamping. So if you're going to stamp something on this, you put your stamp on there, push down on that, and the stamp sticks to the bottom. You lift it up and ink it, put it back on the magnets, and stamp. And these magnets just hold your paper in place. So it has the little stamping pad, punch, stamp, whatever you call it, as well. So it's a great multi-tool. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. It's even got little tubes here that you can put in the holes at the end and make pom-poms and tassels. And it does come with a knife as well for scoring. It's a great travel one, and I bring it because I hate having to bring when I go to one of our craft days, I hate bringing all the different tools that you have to use. But anyway, so that's what I bring along with me when I travel. I just brought it with me because I didn't want to bring my envelope punch and all that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is make the tags, and I'm just going to put it in my envelope punch, and I center, this edge goes in the center of that opening. I'll just move it up here so you can see. And you punch it. And then I just slide it along and I bring it right to the edge. That's just my measurement there. There's a little mark there. Punch again, and it cuts these little notches out. So that's a half of that notch, and that's the full notch. And then I just put it in my cutter. And I make sure that this little end of the notch, excuse me, losing my voice, is right up, right where I want to cut. And I'm only going to go halfway. Oops, I'm going to hold this and stop, and it cuts off that little piece. So there's my notch. And then for the bottom one, I want a bottom notch, so I'm just going to flip it over and do the exact same thing. I'm going to put it inside my punch at the half. There. And then I'm going to make it to that little line that's there. It's just a line that's already on the punch. Like that. And I'm just going to cut to the center, pull that little piece off. And there I have a top notch and a bottom notch. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I need a bottom one, so I'm just going to open this up. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to do my center. And then that one. And I'm going to do, where's my mark? I need one at the top there, so I'm going to do my center. And I always put the little X's just so I don't get them mixed up and end up cutting off the wrong piece when I put it in my cutter or when I'm punching my notches out. Like this, I want to make sure that I cut that. I'll just do it this way. I want to make sure I cut that right piece off. Many times I've gone ahead and cut the wrong piece off. And then these just go inside one another. And there are my tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. And I just did 2 of them like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put those in there like so. And then all I do, and I'm just going to show you on my other one here. Now this one I put, this was just file folders, and the cover is actually a very heavy, thick file folder. And then the insides are the thinner ones. And then all I've done is put cardstock on the front of this, but I don't need to because this one already has something on it. And then on the inside, again, I've just cut lined paper that I had here to fit inside. And I've distressed the edges and glued it in, and I've used a little scrap of the edge of this paper that I cut off and made little pieces of paper that I just glued on there and distressed. And then again, this is just a piece of scrapbooking paper, and I've used one of my punches to punch the edges. I just did a long strip and punched the whole edge, and then I cut little pieces to go in, and they're only that wide. I didn't want them to interfere with the fold, so they're actually not right up against that edge there. They're 2 separate pieces so that it doesn't interfere with my fold. So that's all I've done, and then I've just sewn them in. This one I just put them all inside and made one because my spine was very, very tiny. But this one I'm actually going to do 2 spines. And I will just punch some holes, open up my spine, and punch some holes down here with my punch and my paper. Open up these, and the same thing, I will punch the holes, and then I'll just sew those in. And I'm going to distress all the edges of these pages, front and back, and then I will add my lined paper on top of that, and I will round out my corners of each of these that is square, and then they will just go in there like that. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. I'll just round out my corners of each of those like that. So these will be a little bit rounded, and then I just take my scissors and round out that one little edge there like that. So that's kind of what I'm working on. I'll come back once I get this all distressed and we'll finish it off. Before I start distressing the insides, I wanted to take a piece of this fabric. It's just muslin, a scrap piece that I had. I think this was a piece somebody was making quilts and they had taken apart or had an extra piece, and I just grabbed it out of a scrap bin. But what I'm going to do for the inside of this, instead of putting some plain paper in there, I've taken a piece of the muslin, and all I'm going to do is lay this piece of paper like that on there and glue the muslin to the inside so that this shows around the front like that. And then when I flip it over and the muslin is on the inside, then I will take a piece of cardstock and put a little piece of cardstock on the inside. Once I get it, I'll glue that in, and then I'll sew my signatures in, and then that's how it will be on the inside, and then I'll add a little piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, like I said, distress all of these, and then I'm going to glue this piece of muslin onto the cardstock with just some Fabri-Tac and get that on there as well. And then when we come back and these are all distressed, I'll start adding some of the lined paper there as well. And I'll see if I can find something for maybe the edges of the insides of I'll find a piece of scrapbooking paper that I have. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this on and distress these, and then I'll cut the paper, and we'll come back and I'll glue the paper onto there, and we'll work from there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put the fabric on the inside of the booklet. I have just glued it in some Fabri-Tac like that. And then I've taken my file folder pieces and I've gone ahead and distressed all the edges, both inside and out. And then I am just taking some notebook paper, and this is just from the dollar store. I like this paper because it's a creamy color and it's nice and thick. It's not really too thin. So I've taken some of this paper and I've taken it over to my cutter and cut it off. So it was this long, and I just take a little bit off the top. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting this at 2 7/8, so I'm not cutting it at 3, which is the width of my file folders and my booklet, right? So I've cut it at 2 7/8, and then this is going to fit on the inside. Let me just take one of them so you can see. This is going to fit on the inside of my book here, and it's just going to fit in. I'm just going to have the edges showing barely, and I'm going to keep it, I have to round these edges off, so I'm going to keep it as close to the end as possible. So I'm going to give it about a 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch on the edge here. And then that is why, because the book is not as long as these, I'm going to get that little piece of scrapbooking paper and I'm going to put that little fancy edge on, and that will cover up the edge where it doesn't quite meet the end of my file folder. So again, I'm just using what I have here with me. Trying not to make it too technical, just using what I have on hand. So I'm using, oh, there goes my kettle. I'm using these notebook pieces, so I'll save that for something else. What I've gone ahead and done was I've taken, there's about 5 sheets here, and I've just cut them at the 2 7/8, and then I'm just going to put them through my cutter and cut them at that fold right there. My cutter is just off screen slightly, so I'm going to cut that. So there, I have enough now, and you're going to need 16 pieces of paper because you want one for both sides of each page, and there is 4 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then another 8 is 16. So you're going to need 16 of these lined pages. And again, you're going to round your corners of your pages, and I'm going to round the corners of my file folders as well. And then I'm going to distress all the edges of this paper as well. So I'm going to distress the papers, then I'm going to glue them on here, and then I'm going to find a piece of paper that I want to add and do my punching for that. So I'll go off screen and distress those edges and cut my edges off. What I'm going to do for the inside of this is find a piece of scrapbooking paper. And this was the pad that I got at the thrift store. It's Prima Marketing. It has 96 sheets, and it's called Nursery Tales, and it's from 2008. So somebody must have had this for a while in their stash and finally decided to donate it. But there was 3 There was this one, another thinner one, and another thick one, all taped together for $3.99. So I grabbed them. Now I probably won't use the bunny rabbits and the mice and that kind of thing. And it almost looks like Christopher Robin and Alice in Wonderland or something. I will give those to a friend of mine who likes Alice in Wonderland. But I'm going to use this piece of paper, and it's got some very faint writing on it. And it looks like it's in Latin or something. And I'm just going to cut 2 pieces to go on the inside of this booklet that will go in there. So I'm going to cut this at 7 inches wide. Actually, I'll cut it at 3 inches. No, I won't, because these are 7. I need 14. Okay, so I'm going to cut 2 3-inch strips minus an eighth. So it's going to be 2 7/8. 2 7/8. And I'll do another one at 2 7/8. Make sure you got it the right way where the writing's going to go. So I'll recut this 2 7/8. Like that. And I'm just going to use the outside cover as an example here. So it's going to just fit on the inside like that. And I will round my corners, but I want to make it the 7 inches minus the 8. Like that. There's one. 7 inches minus an 8. So 6 7/8 if you want to do it that way. If you want to get technical. And then I'm just going to move my scrapbooking paper out of the way here. And these are going on the inside. And I always place them where they're going to go because you want to round up the corners in the right spot. So I'm going to round out these 2 corners. This one and this one. So that will go on the inside like that. And then I'm going to round out these 2 corners. Like that. And I'm going to distress the edges of this as well. And that will go on the inside cover of my password notebook. And then I'll have these on the inside with these distressed and attached. And then what I'll do is I'm going to sew them in, and I'll come back to do that. And then we'll add that little piece of paper at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and distress and round my corners, and we'll come back. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly the process of distressing, and I usually skip all this, but I thought may as well show you what I'm doing. Because this paper is very thin, it's not cardstock, and with cardstock I don't mind using my blending brush just holding it. Because this paper is so thin and I want to do the edges, I just get an old piece of chipboard. This is the back of one of my paper pads. And I set the paper on the edge. And it just makes it easier for me to distress the edges of the paper without bending them or... So there's the piece of paper that I'm going to put on that side. And then I've just taken some of the cardstock that I put on the inside, and I've cut it to the width of my paper, which was 2 7/8, and then I just cut them to 1.5 inches. And these pieces I'm going to put in my little Fiskar punch here. And I've put a piece of tape on my punch to see where I can get one of the bubbles, and I'll show you what I mean. Oops, let me just move all this stuff out of the way here. One of the bubbles at the edge. So it only punches so much, and then you just move it over and line up that bubble with the one on the outside so that it sits perfectly within that bubble, and you punch again, and when you pull it out you'll have a continuous punch there like that. And then because this is cardstock, I can just hold it if I want to. But I just find with the paper it's so thin, it's hard to hold when you're distressing it. And then I'm just going to go like this along the edges of the bubbles. And I just wanted to really quickly, I will glue this page in. I'm using my Fabri-Tac just because it's sitting here and it's unpacked. And I'm going to quickly glue this page in, and I will show you why I need that little extra piece of cardstock on the end there. Okay. Move these out of the way. I'm going to pull this up here. And I'm going to put this paper in. And I'm leaving myself about 1/8 of an inch on the end here. And then I just take my brayer and push that down so it gives a nice, it just kind of spreads the glue out underneath instead of having all the little lines. If you use a brayer, it just kind of squishes that glue down. And then I'm going to take this little piece, and I've added one piece here. So you can see, because my paper is too short, I need something to go on the inside to cover that little bit there. So I'm just going to add some Fabri-Tac glue on the back of this, and then what I do is I just run the wet tip of the glue along the edges of the bubbles. I actually don't want to put too much glue on there because it oozes out through the bubbles. And then I'm going to put this piece on there, and it's got to match up with the edges of the paper at the top and the bottom, and then you've got to make sure that it's far enough away from that fold that when you fold up your piece, because you're going to have another piece of this file folder there, you want to be away from that fold a little bit. So that's what I'm going to continue doing with these pieces. I will punch, slide it down, match up that last bubble, punch again, distress the edges. Just a little bit. We're not trying to make them too dark. Like that. I'll glue this guy in, and I'll just show you what it looks like when they're close together. And again, I just rub a little bit. I'm not really squeezing the glue out. I'm just kind of letting it ooze out slowly along those bubbles. And again, you want to match up with the edge of the paper because I've cut it to the same height as the paper. And I want to leave it 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I'm just going to use my brayer real quickly to do that, so that when they're together in the book, like that, you'll still see that little bit of an edge, and it will close. Now this is going to bulk up your ends a little bit, but I'm okay with that because my spine is a little wider than my other one. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to just add a little bit to the ends of those papers to cover that you didn't have the length of the book pages. So I'm going to go ahead and finish distressing my book pages and put them in, and finish punching my little pieces of paper and put those in as well, and then we'll sew it in. Alright, so everything is now distressed, and I've put in my lined pages and my little pieces of end paper there. And this is the first signature, and this is the second signature. And if you see any of your Fabri-Tac glue, you can see it has a little bit of a shine. I just take my gum eraser that I got at the dollar store, and I just really gently rub my gum eraser on it, and it actually pulls the glue off and the shiny spots off. So you should get a gum eraser if you like to use Fabri-Tac glue, because it is awesome for getting up all the little residue and the shiny spots off of your paper. So there's my two signatures, and there's my cover with the insides in, and then these are going to go on the inside of this, like that. So we will have our cover. So what I'm going to do is just punch really quickly. I'm going to take my top cover and open it up, or my top pages and my second pages, and I'm just going to set those inside. So we have all four of them together. And what I like to do is just grab two little bowl clips, and I make sure they're nice and tight, and I put them in a V like that, and then I put a bowl clip on them. Let me just make sure they're lined up straight, and they're in that V, and I put a little bowl clip there, and I make sure they're all pushed down, and I put another bowl clip there, and it just holds them in that position. And then I just take my punch. This is a Tim Holtz punch. It's for poking the stuff out of your die cuts, but I use it as my punch. And I'm just going to punch 5 holes, and I'm just going to go about 1/4 inch in from the top and bottom. Then I'm going to punch the center hole, and then I'm going to punch one in between those. So I'm going to keep it at a V, And I'm going to go at about 1/4 of an inch in, and I'm going to punch through that one. And 1/4 of an inch from the other end. Oops, let me just make sure these are straight here. And 1/4 of an inch from the other end. And I keep it at a V so that they go through at the right angle. And then I do the center one. And I'm just eyeballing. You don't have to be perfect. So I have 3 holes there. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to put a hole in the middle. You can leave it at 3. For some reason, I just like smaller stitches. So there we go. So I have my 5 holes. Like that. And then for this piece, I'm going to punch the holes on this side because I won't be able to see it very well. Oh, I might be able to see it. Let's see. And all I do is line this up with my holes. And I'll just use the top one. I'm just going to pull these apart. So there's my 1 and 2. And I'm just going to use the top one so I can fold it flatter. And I line it up with my papers so that I'm even. I want to have, so there's a 1/16 of an inch on either side of those. And I'm just going to slide that over. And I'm going to mark, excuse my head here, with my pencil where those punch holes are. And I'm just making little lines like that. So let's put these back together. And then I'm going to punch holes. Now this is fairly thin, so this is going to be tricky. So I really want to go about, if my line goes straight across, which I will make it go straight across, like that. I want to try and go in about 1/8 of an inch on either side of this. So I'm just going to punch, it might be easier to do it on that side, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to punch these 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then on the other end, same thing. I'm just going about 1/8 of an inch in from that paper. Let's see how we did on the other side. Oh, not bad. Perfect. So next I'm going to take my thread and my needles. And this is where I got the design idea. This was actually a clothing tag that my sister bought a coat, and it came with these clothing tags attached to it, and she gave them to me, and I thought this would make a really neat little booklet. So I actually used this as my template and just kind of cut it the same idea. The other one I made, I did put the tabs at the top, but then I thought it was a little bit too, they were sticking out in the wrong spaces, so I did end up putting the tabs at the end so that when you open up the book, the tabs are at the end. Anyway, so we're going to take our thread, and I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3 for one signature, 1, 2, and 3 for the second signature. And then because this is waxed thread, you just have to kind of squish the end with your nail and it flattens it out. And I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to thread that through the end of my needle. Like that. And then we're going to take our first signature. Now, where do I want to? I think I'm going to start on the outside because I want the tail on the outside. So I'm going to poke that through at the bottom. And then I'm going to make sure I have these in the right direction. I'm just going to line up my holes and make sure I do. Okay. And then I'm just going to pull the needle through a little bit and poke it through the bottom holes of this. And of course they won't line up because I moved them around too much. Once you do the first hole or two, the papers will stay lined up. All right. And I'm going to do it this way. See, they're lined up nicely. And I'm going to go through the second hole right there and pull. I just want to see how much of a tail I have. I don't need that big of a tail, so I'm just going to pull it a little more. You only need about a 2-inch tail. And then you're going to come back in, and you want to make sure you stay on the right line. Okay, so I'm going in my third hole. I can't see. It's terrible lighting in here. I should show you the light that I have above my head. It's probably the ugliest light fixture I've ever seen. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go in that one. Make sure we hold on to our 2-inch tail. And we pull that nice and tight. And there we go. See, the holes eventually line up once you get going. For some reason, they don't like this coming in this way. Get in there. There's one. There's the second one. There it is. Okay. And again, it's just a pamphlet stitch, in, out, in, out, in, out. And you want to get a nice pull so it's nice and tight. And then you're going to go back down through the same holes. If I can get them to come in and out. And then what I'm going to do, ouch, just put my finger, is I'm going to tie a knot right here. And I'm going to pull it down to the bottom, and then I'm just going to stick my fingernail in there just to hold it, and it holds it flat for you. And then you can just tie that knot there like that. And then I'm just going to keep that thread there. I'm going to close my booklet, and I'm going to come in the bottom hole of the next row. There, and we're going to take this one, and I wonder if I did punch them upside down. I think I did. I don't think it matters that much. I'm going in the bottom, then through the second one, into that hole, and like I say, it will line up your holes for you once you pull it tight. And we'll put it in that one. This is the hardest part, the sewing. And in that hole, the last hole, if I can find it, there it is. And through that one. You pull it nice and tight, and then down again through those same holes that you just did. Where am I going? This one? Yes. And down again. And you come out at the outside, and all I'm going to do is put that through underneath that string there, so it kind of holds it, and then I'm going to tie another knot right there, and we want to slide it down to the bottom and tie it one more time. And pull. And then I'm just going to cut that off. You can leave some longer strings if you want to add a little dangly bead to the back of that. There is our booklet with our tabs on the end. like that. And I normally will take my bowl clips and just, I need my bigger ones because this is a bigger book. And I just kind of put those on there and hold it so that it holds it nice and tight. So then we're going to put on our little cover piece here. Let's glue that on. That will go here. Like that. And then I think I'm going to add this little guy here. And I will put the word, whatever I'm going to use it for, whether it's passwords or hashtag, I will put that on there as well. Now I save, I almost threw my needle away. I save the little holes that I use, that I punch when I'm punching things out or when I use my die cuts. I save these little holes. Now these ones are pretty big, but the little tiny ones, if they're in a different color, you can use them to put on some fake brads. So if I had some black or brown, and I think what I'll do is I'll put these on and then just distress them so that they're brown. And that will look like a tiny little brad. And I just use my glue here. Oops, that came out really, really fast. Put that there. Oh, it's squeezing out too fast. It's very liquidy. I just refilled it, so I guess I had some air in the top. There. And then I just use my finger. Actually, I have a tissue in my pocket I'll use. There we go. That'll sop up the excess there. And then I can just use my brush and once it's dry and add some brown to it to make it look like a little brad. So that is my little password book. You can decorate the front a little more. You can add an envelope in here as a pocket and some stickers. And then just take some scrap paper and make little tabs here. And I'm just going to get some paper and put some little tabs on the ends of my tabs. And I'm going to put another little envelope as well with a tag in it on the inside. So that is another password book. Again, just using scraps and a file folder, some lined pages, a nice big one, and then using the other half of the file folder to make this really cool little pocket. And I think I'm going to go ahead and distress all the edges of that as well, and then add maybe a book page to the front and stamp it and add some scrap bits and pieces, and that'll be a little pocket. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you real soon.